All right, let's talk about that feeling. You know the one. You see something's price just shooting for the moon, and you start thinking, wait, am I nuts for not buying this? That mix of pure greed and that fear of missing out, that's the engine behind one of the wildest rides in economics, the speculative bubble. So today, we're going to break it all down. We're going to look at its predictable, kind of crazy 5-act play. Yeah, it's that little voice in the back of your head, isn't it? The one that's telling you, hey, you are missing the boat here. It feels like everyone else is cashing in and getting rich, and you're just stuck on the sidelines. Well, that feeling, that's the tiny spark that can light the fuse for a massive, massive bubble. I mean, just think back to the dot-com craze in the late 90s, right? It was a total gold rush. It felt like you could take any idea, no matter how shaky the business plan was, slap a .com on the end of it, and boom, you were a millionaire overnight. It was nuts. And then, what happened? Just a few years later, the whole script just played out again. Only this time, it wasn't tech stocks, it was houses. Everybody and their brother was flipping properties, and you just couldn't imagine a world where real estate prices would ever go down. It felt impossible. And look, this isn't just some dusty old history lesson. Right now, you can feel that exact same energy, that same breathless hype swirling around things like AI or, all the different cryptocurrencies. It just goes to show you the cycle is always there, always ready to start up again. But here's the thing. And this is the key takeaway. As absolutely chaotic and random as all this feels when you're in it, it's not. It's really not. History shows us that these booms and busts almost always follow a surprisingly predictable pattern, a script. And today, we're going to lay out that 5-part script for you. So, what exactly is a speculative bubble? Well, at its core, it's when the price of something gets totally detached from reality. It becomes a fantasy. People stop buying an asset because of what it's actually worth, its value. Instead, they're buying it for one simple and pretty dangerous reason. They believe some greater fool will come along and pay even more for it tomorrow. Okay, and here it is. This is our roadmap. The predictable script. From that first little spark of excitement all the way to the big, painful pop at the end. Pretty much every bubble you can think of follows these 5 stages. We're going to walk through every single one so you can see exactly how the mania gets built up and, how it all comes crashing down. All right, so every big fire needs 2 things to get going, right? A spark and then some fuel. Well, in the world of economic bubbles, it's pretty much the same thing. It all starts with a powerful new idea and then a whole flood of easy money to chase after it. So, Phase 1. It all kicks off with something economists call a displacement. That's the spark. All of a sudden, something totally new and revolutionary pops up that just changes the rules of the game. Think about the birth of the internet, or what's happening right now with AI. Investors see this brand new world of profits opening up, and bam, money just starts pouring into this hot new sector. But a spark by itself fizzles out, right? It needs fuel. And for a bubble, that fuel is cheap money. This is phase 2. Credit just becomes super easy to get. Maybe central banks slashed interest rates or tons of foreign cash comes flooding into the country looking for a good return. A really clear, modern example of this, think about all that quantitative easing after 2020. That policy basically pumped trillions of dollars into the economy. It made borrowing money incredibly cheap, and it was like pouring gasoline on all these little speculative fires that were starting to burn. Okay, so we've got the big, revolutionary idea. We've got the cheap money to chase it. Now the human brain gets involved. Psychology takes over, and the market enters its most iconic and honestly its most dangerous phase. Pure, uncut euphoria. Ah, yes. The 4 most expensive words in the history of finance. During this euphoria phase, this powerful story takes over everyone's thinking. That the old rules just don't apply anymore. This time is different. It's not like bubbles of the past. No, this is a permanent new age of wealth. It's basically a collective delusion that makes it feel like prices can only go up forever. And at this point, you can just toss all the spreadsheets and fundamentals right out the window. They don't matter. People aren't buying because they think the company or the asset has great long-term value. Nope, they're buying for one reason and one reason only. To flip it to somebody else for a fast profit. The entire market just turns into this giant high-stakes game of hot potato, or finding that greater fool. And this is where things get really dangerous. Leverage. It's when speculators start using borrowed money to make even bigger bets. And on the way up, it feels like you have a superpower. Your profits are just magnified. It's incredible. But leverage is absolutely a double-edged sword. The second prices even hesitate or dip a little, it magnifies your losses just as fast. It can force you to sell, which pushes prices down more, which forces more people to sell, and you get this massive domino effect that can bring the whole thing down. So the party is absolutely raging. The music's blasting, everyone's having a great time, but a few smart people are starting to quietly sneak towards the exits. This is it. This is where we get into the final, really dramatic acts of the bubble. See, the pop is almost never one single moment. It's more like a terrifying cascade of events. First, you have the insiders, the people who really know the asset is overpriced, and they start to quietly cash out. Then the price dips, but, and this is cruel, it's often followed by a short, deceptive rally. That's the bull trap. It sucks in the very last of the optimists. And then comes the knockout punch, some major event, like a big company or a bank going under, that just shatters everyone's confidence. And that's it. Panic turns into a stampede. Everyone sprints for the exit at the same time, and prices just completely collapse. And after all that panic, we hit the final stage, revulsion. The asset that everybody loved, the star of the show, suddenly becomes toxic. Nobody wants to touch it. Investors are just so scarred, so burned by their losses, that they look at the whole market with total disgust. You know, after the dot-com bubble blew up in Germany, there was an entire generation of people who just swore off investing in stocks for years. They were just too afraid of getting burned all over again. So listening to all this, it just sounds like bubbles are 100% destructive, right? Just pure economic poison. Well, it's actually a little more complicated than that. There's a real debate about whether they might, just might, be a necessary evil. So here's the really weird paradox of a bubble. Let's look at the good, if you can call it that. During the boom, people who own the asset feel richer, so they spend more money, which is good for the economy. And innovative companies find it super easy to get funding for new ideas. But then there's the bad. The market's price signals get completely warped, which leads to huge amounts of money being wasted on projects that were never going to work. And that whole debt-fueled party, it almost always ends with a really painful, really long economic hangover.
So there you have it, the 5 stages: displacement, credit creation, euphoria, the critical phase, and finally, revulsion. The crazy thing is, this script almost never changes. So now that you know the anatomy of a bubble, the real question is for you. When you look at the markets today, can you start to spot the signs? Can you hear those whispers, those 4 dangerous words? This time is different. Because that 5-act play, it's always running somewhere. The difference is, now you know exactly how to watch it.